our town hall meeting. One of the ideas behind the town hall meeting is to bring topics of interest to our citizens and to bring them to you and not expect you to come to City Hall to hear about them. So we've been doing this for a number of years, and we've gotten good feedback from our citizens. And of course, we're optimists. We always think that we're going to get this full room because every issue is so vitally important. We are live streaming this, so this will reach out to citizens that can access it in the comfort of their living rooms as well. So we're trying to do this in a number of ways to get good, relevant information to you. But we appreciate that you have spent a portion of your evening with us, and we'll try and be efficient with your time. We will have, you all have an agenda, I hope. We will touch on each of those topics. We'll have questions at the end, and I will recognize that we, in light of bringing City Hall to you, we do have a number of directors or representatives for various departments here as well. So I'm going to quickly introduce them. Dell Bolthouse is our Director of Public Works. All things utility, like sewer, water type of stuff, the stuff that we don't want you to see. CJ Coles is our City Clerk, and they do a lot of permitting, licensing, and public records. He keeps all the minutes and agendas for our City Council meetings and all of our citizen commissions. We have Joe Bongiorno. He is our Fire Marshal, and so if you have any questions in the fire realm, he is a resource for you this evening as well. Behind him is Kendall and Stephanie. They're both in our police department, and they're in prevention programs and our anti-drug coalition. So Colin Moss is sitting next to Stephanie. He is in our parks department, and he can talk to you about all things green and recreational. There you go. And behind him is our chief of police, Jeff Levy. And so he's hanging out with crime prevention, which is one reason we're one of the safest communities in Idaho and among our nation. Shelley Houston back there, she is also in our parks department, and if you know Shelley, you will never forget her. Treg Burnt is one of our City Council meeting members, and our newest member, so thank you, Mr. Burnt, for joining us tonight. And you'll be introduced to the rest of our crew here. Casey Emery is in the very back, and she's our communications manager. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Dave Miles and Andrea Pogue, and they're going to talk about our Hefty Orange Bag program.
Hello, my name is Andrea Pogue. I'm with the legal department, and I am also a commissioner on the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. And with me tonight is David Miles from the Public Works Department. We also have in attendance Steve Corey. Steve, if you would stand. He's our Solid Waste Advisory Commissioner and Chairperson. We're happy you're here, Steve. Earlier this year, Meridian learned about something called the Hefty Energy Bag, or common vernacular is Orange Bag Program. At the same time, we were learning that a certain amount of our plastic recycled stream was to be now treated almost overnight as trash instead of recyclable material. Concerned about that situation and also curious about the Orange Bag Program, our Solid Waste Advisory Commission was charged with researching it and reporting back to the Mayor and City Council with our findings. It was very interesting. Boise received a grant from Dow Chemical to launch a citywide orange bag program. And as a result, that's what brought it to the Treasure Valley and opened possible opportunity for other cities to participate. So one of the first things we realized was that we would have to obtain permission from Dow and Boise to participate under Boise's grant, kind of piggybacking onto their grant program. And we were asked to proceed and see if we could get that permission, which we did. Speak a little louder. Better? Okay, it echoes. So after we received permission to participate, to have the opportunity to participate, Council approved the initial program to be made available to 1,500 households on a voluntary basis, and with the cost of the annual supply of bag kits to be paid for from the Community Recycling Fund. So it turns out that a one-year supply for 1,500 households will cost in excess of $10,000. And as I said, our Community Recycling Fund is going to pay for that. And that's a tribute to all of us in the city who recycle. That is how that revenue is raised and goes into our fund to be distributed in these type of worthwhile programs. The 1,500 households, as I said, it'll be on a voluntary basis. It'll be through a registration process, and it'll be on a first-come, first-served basis. We'll get to what that will involve in a minute. But right now, the step we're at is staff is reviewing the memorandum of understanding that Meridian has been asked to sign with the city of Boise. And in that agreement contains all of the program requirements and compliance terms and standards that our households will be required to uphold in order to not jeopardize Boise's grant and everything that they're required to do. Once we have finished that process, it will be brought to the mayor for signature, and upon its delivery to Boise, Boise will proceed to order our supply of bag kits. And while we're waiting for that to arrive, staff will embark on planning, because we're really planning this program from scratch up in terms of administering it here in Meridian. So we're developing a marketing campaign, an advertising campaign that we will roll out. We want to make sure that every household that might be interested will hear about it in multiple fashion. So we anticipate you'll have an insert in your utility billing statements. We will have it on social media. We'll have it in the mayor's newsletter. There should be no reason why any household that's interested in learning more about the program or signing up for it won't have heard of it. Later in the summer, after we have received our bag kits and our 1,500 households signed up, we would then proceed to distribution and an official launch of the program. And Dave is going to go over what the timeline is going to look like as we can anticipate it at this point in time. But first, Dave, we did bring props, and so I wanted him to show you what an annual supply, a one-year supply of the orange bags look like, the kit a household would receive.
So thank you, Andrea. This is a sample of what is being passed out in Boise currently, likely what we'll see in Meridian as well when and if we get the program moving forward. So it'll be at City Hall. We will likely have a pickup program different from the city of Boise. But just wanted to show you what you'd be on the lookout for when this becomes active in the program. It'll come along with a little flyer that will tell you exactly what's allowed in the bag and what to do with those things that are not in the bag. And we will have information, contact information at the bottom of it as well. So this will be part of your kit if you're one of the 1,500 households that's in the program.
So just to flesh it out a bit more, in case you haven't heard of the Orange Bag program, what is unique to this area is that we are close to Utah and a company in Utah that can convert certain types of plastic into diesel fuel. Those types of plastic are what is going to go into the orange bag. So in Meridian, we will have certain types of plastic that can still go in your recycling cart. If you're participating in the orange bag program, the remainder, what you've been told to put in your trash can, you will now be able to put in the orange bags. And then you'll tie them up and you'll put them in your recycling cart, and they'll be delivered to Western Recycling's MRF, and they'll be sorted out, put in a shipping container, and when they have a full load, they ship it down to the company, which is called Renology. One of the really important details that households will have to consider, they're going to have to agree to the standards, and that means one of the important things is that they won't put contaminants inside the orange bag. So if there are contaminants in the bag, the whole bag will be thrown out. And if Renology opens enough of the bags and there's too many contaminants, they will either charge more money or they will reject them. So the success of the program for Boise, for Meridian, for Garden City, and Eagle, the two other cities participating, is to have dedicated households who will read the instructions, ask questions, call in throughout the year if problems develop, to learn how to handle the plastics that go in the bag versus in the trash can. And of course, the thing is, when in doubt, throw it out. So we're hoping that we have that much interest in the community, 1,500 households, and like I said, you'll be learning more from Dave about what the timeline looks like for the next steps.
Thank you, Andrea. So to reiterate Andrea's point, we anticipate having a lot of outreach about what can and cannot go in these bags, what can and cannot be recycled as part of the effort and on the material. There will also likely be online videos. I know that Renology and Hefty Orange Bag in Boise have a series of videos currently, so we'll either adopt those or play off those in some form or fashion. So the technical how it works will come to you and be explained. I don't think that right now we need to go into all the details, but from a timeline perspective, just to give you some information about where we stand in the process, Andrea touched on the fact that we have to review an MOU with the City of Boise and enter into that legal agreement with them to meet the requirements of their program and have a discussion about what that means. So right now you see we're at the town hall tonight. We anticipate through the 1st of June to do a database development with our IT department so that we can make registration as seamless as possible, because we know it's a difficult thing to do. We want to make it as easy as possible. We envision an online registration format, and that's sort of where we're progressing right now. Once we hit that beginning of June timeframe, you move over into the orange. We'll begin a series of outreach programs, probably through the first week or two of July, to make sure that all the residents in Meridian have equal time, equal information about how to exactly register for the program. We do anticipate it to be a first come, first serve program, so we want everybody to make sure they have all the appropriate information on how to register before we just say, okay, go ahead and register. So what we'll do is we'll likely include utility bill mailers at 2 points in the cycle. We will likely also work with the mayor's communications office to do publishing on Facebook, publishing on Nextdoor, things of that nature, press releases as well. So we'll do a blanket media approach for about a month and a half into that July timeframe. At that point, we would open the registration to the community, and it would be an online registration, again, as I said. And that will be first come, first serve. There'll be a cutoff at 1,500, we envision, but there will be a spot to sort of balance that if we find people that signed up but can't participate, or for some reason weren't in the city of Meridian that shouldn't be participating, we'll bump up the next few people into those slots. So we'll do that for about 2 weeks through mid-July into the end of July, and then that's when we would begin to distribute kits at the end of July into the beginning of August. And as kits are picked up at City Hall, you begin using the products as well. And then we envision that going until we run out of the 1,500 kits, and we sort of have to take a second look and see how the program has worked, the benefits that have come along with it, the challenges we've had, and what the community feedback is, where Boise's going with their program, but we anticipate at least running through that 1,500 count to see how it goes. And that's sort of the timeline. The dates are tentative, that's why I put that up there. I don't want you to grab onto a date and think it's exact, but that's kind of the time frame we are thinking about. And with that, I think that's pretty well covers it. Yes, sir.
Will there be a minimal amount? We don't generate such trash at any time, so before the cutoff on recycling, we didn't fill our cans every 2 weeks, so even less now.
Dave, can I answer that question?
Sure.
So, good question. One of the things that surprised me, the question is a household that doesn't generate much recyclable material, and so they're wondering, would it be should they sign up or not? In other words, would you be taking a spot that might otherwise be used by somebody else that recycles more? What I found interesting was that the plastic that goes in the orange bag is called number 3 through 7 plastics. On an annual basis, the average household generates 2 pounds of that material. It is an extremely small percentage of the overall recycling stream. So I think everybody is going to be in a similar situation. Maybe a household with a lot of kids might generate a little bit more, a little bit less, but Boise went with a 13-gallon bag. That's the size of these bags. You would be putting them in your recycling container as you do now, no change in service. If you have a bag that is half full, throw it in, right? I mean, because you're getting a year's supply. You might ask other people if they want to participate in your households if you're not filling it up. I think if you're interested in participating, go ahead and sign up. So I hope that helps answer the question. Yeah.
This seems to be being rolled out almost as a pilot. So what constitutes success of the pilot, number one? Number two, does this have the potential to generate any kind of income and or reduce expenses in the future that's successful?
Okay, good questions.
Sure, I can take this. Success in my mind would look like, number one, we're having full utilization of the program. So 1,500 people signed up, 1,500 people are theoretically using the bags and putting them in the recycling. And on top of that, they're using it correctly. So contamination limits, meaning no dirty food containers, no dirty pizza containers. Those things are not ending up in that stream. And we're getting reports back from the franchise provider that, hey, all the material Meridian's sending in is clean and it's good. In terms of the revenue side, we have asked the question on what the revenue stream looks like for the production. What this plastic does is go down to Utah, as Andrea said, gets converted into off-road grade diesel. We have asked the question, what's happening with that diesel? Who owns the rights to that diesel right now? And if it's being sold, is there a revenue cost sharing options? That's another question we have hanging out there waiting for an answer.
Okay, Dave, I do know from having talked to the owner of Runology, they own the diesel and they market it.
There you go.
So there you go. Let's see, you asked another good question about it sounds like a pilot program. It isn't that. It's the year one of a program that we would hope to continue based on performance outcome. We hope the valley-wide succeeds in meeting the performance requirements, compliance requirements that Dow has set, so that we know Boise is all in. Their grant covers 2 years. They're working extremely hard, as is Republic Services and the owners of the MRF, to keep getting the word out about no contamination and educating. The message is virtually the same. So anything you hear that Boise, if you have family or friends in Boise and that you're learning about what they're learning, it's the same information that will apply here in Meridian. So we don't know how year two would change. There are possibilities we've learned that Dow is exploring with Reynolds, the maker of the 13-gallon bags, that they might go on retail and be sold at grocery stores, in which case the program could open wide, right, and to all households that want to buy their annual supply. We could look at different funding sources. That's what will become a factor in evaluating how Meridian is to proceed. Boise made it mandatory for all of their households. Here we've started with voluntary. We would like the super recyclers to step up and make this program a success in Meridian. When our bags are opened from Meridian, we would like there to be no contamination. If we get that kind of a toehold and a start, we can develop it. We can generate, I think, a positive learning curve. Yeah.
What is the
No, Dave?
Yeah, the question was, what will the pickup of the bags look like for the customer? The bags are intended, once they're full, to go directly into your recycling bin. And simply put it in your recycling bin, you won't notice any difference. And at that point, the recycling company and the franchise company will take it away, and they'll begin the process. So you should not notice any difference. I know we've got a busy agenda. Do we have time for one more? Yes, sir.
Question I got is, stuff that we're putting in the recycling bin now, is this going to be different stuff? So we're increasing the amount that we recycle? Or is it the same stuff, but we're just switching it to the bag?
Good question.
That's a great question. The question was, are we putting in different recycling material than we currently are? And maybe I'll start and let you finish. The goal is that the right stuff is going in the orange bag. I think that Andrea may touch on the sort of the concept of wishful recycling that a lot of people have realized over the years. What we want to see in the bags are the approved materials, which should be things that are typically, in the past, have gone in the trash. Often we know that several people in several communities would put them in the recycling, hoping that they're recyclable. So the amount of material should be about the same. It's just going to go in different pockets. Your trash will stay in your trash bin. The recyclables, the ones and twos, will go in the blue bin, and everything else that's for the orange bag will go in the orange bag.
Exactly, Dave. It is what we had prior to the beginning of this year. Hopefully less contamination, except that we did throw out like our grocery bags, right? And now grocery bags can go in there. So it's a fascinating process that Runology uses. They break the plastic back down to its molecular level, then it turns into a gas in their oven, and then it liquefies. And it's very important because of their unique process that only the right material goes in there.
Can you just really quickly finish answering your question, whether or not this is a profit generator or if we have to pay to participate?
Well, okay, this year there will be no cost to participate for 1,500 households. That expense is being paid for from the Community Recycling Fund. As I said, going forward, that would be the year 2 details that we would be evaluating as to, one, how the performance went, and also how would a program year 2 look, what would it look like, and how would we pay for it?
So currently, the orange content in the bags does not generate a profit.
No, recycling has changed. Recycling has historically been a revenue generator, and then it's based on secondary markets. China made a big change. They increased contamination standards, and consequently it had a negative effect on the global economy in the recycling realm. So now there is, right now the 3 through 7s are trash. And because we're near Runology in Salt Lake City, we have this opportunity to divert some of that now trash, those 3 through 7 plastics, via the orange bag down to that company.
Quick one. How soon will we receive the paperwork that we can sit down and go through and know how we're going to divide that?
Dave?
Sure. The question was when we will get the paperwork to know what exactly to put in there. That would come at the time where we begin to distribute the kits. So generally we're projecting the end of July, beginning of August, as to when we would contact people and say, okay, your kits are ready for pickup. And when you pick up the kits, that's when you would be getting that information. That said, there's plenty of information out on, I believe our website has information. And also if you Google Hefty Energy Bag Program, you'll find a lot of information out there. So if you're interested now to sort of get educated on the program, you can contact us at City Hall. You can go online, do some Google search, and find a lot of information. So with that, I think I think I can address your question offline if you don't mind, but I know we do have to move on, if that's all right. Up next will be Caleb Hood with the Lime Bike program.
Good evening. My name is Caleb Hood. I work in community development, and one of my roles is to facilitate work with the Meridian Transportation Commission and other transportation agencies in Ada County and I'm here this evening to talk to you a little bit about an opportunity that recently presented itself in Meridian regarding bike share. So first of all, what is bike share? Bike share is an innovative transportation program ideal for short distance, point-to-point trips, providing users with the ability to pick up a bicycle from one location and leave it at another. So that's the dictionary definition of what bike share is. Essentially, it's bike rental that you can, again, rent a bike for short trips, typically, not all the time, but you pick up a bike, ride it to where you want to go, and you lock it back up, and the next person picks up the bike and takes it where they want to go, and so on and so forth. There's a fee to use those bikes. They are meant to be a one-size-fits-most bike with baskets on the front, so you can run errands and whatnot and put some goods in there. They're also low maintenance. The cool thing about the bike share opportunity that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tonight is historically these programs have worked off of a docked system. So you pick up the bike in a bike rack and you return it to a bike rack. What Lime Bike, who is a bike share company, when they approached the city of Meridian earlier this year, they are a dockless bike share station. So basically, you can pick it up wherever you see it or wherever you find it, and you leave it wherever you're going for the next person. So that's kind of their claim to fame, if you will. There are some other companies that are doing dockless as well, but they're the first ones that came to Meridian wanting to provide this service. So just the past couple of months, the Meridian Transportation Commission and the City Council have heard presentations from Lime Bike. We do have a draft memorandum of understanding with them that has been shared with them. And they are contemplating the signature of that so that they can execute that agreement with the city and deploy bikes later this year. So, next slide, please. Something else that's pretty cool about them, users download an application on your mobile device, and that's how you find these bikes. Basically, they're all GPSed. So it knows where you're at after you get the app, and it shows you where the nearest bikes are or a bike you're interested in. You unlock the bike with your mobile device. You pay for the bike with your mobile device. You ride it, and it charges you through the mobile device as well. So that's kind of the interface to actually get the bike. And then they have 3 different models that they're going to bring to town. One is kind of just a traditional 3-speed bike, pedal bike. One of the other ones that I think is pretty cool is this Lime e-bike. So this is an electric assist bike, so you still pedal, but if you're going up a hill, get tired, whatever, it will keep you going a little bit, and it really does have some get up and go. They did demonstrate these. It was late March, I guess. They came to City Hall Plaza. We got to test them out a little bit, and they have a little zip to them. I think, they go up to about 15 miles an hour, and they can go about 62 miles without having to be recharged. Lime S is their scooter version of that, so similar concept. It is powered, but it also has a throttle, basically, that you can go about 15 miles an hour on. So those are 2 of the 3 products. I think there's one more slide. Oh, that's it. Okay. So that is their product. Again, we don't have a deployment date certain yet, but we are still kind of in negotiations with them, if you will, and they're talking with Boise and the Ada County Highway District as well, but hopeful that they'll come to town here soon. So that's Bike Share and Lime Bike. So any questions? All right. Oh, go ahead, sir. No, sir. So the question was, are there any taxpayer dollars used in this program? So that was one of the interesting things. You could talk to one of our council members after, but one of the interesting things I think that they picked up on is this public-private partnership really doesn't require anything of the city or taxpayers. They are providing all of the bikes, they manage them, make sure maintenance happens. The one cost we may incur is if they block a public way, police may have to go out there and move them, those types of things, but there's no direct costs associated with this program. So, any other questions? Yeah.
What's the breadth of the area that will be serviced by this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question was the service area for the bike sharing. Again, I know they're talking with other cities in the Treasure Valley, so I think that's probably what they're waiting on, is to make sure that they have more than just Meridian, because a lot of trips, I imagine, wouldn't stay within just the boundaries of Meridian. They could go to Boise or Eagle or Garden City, whatnot. So Treasure Valley, what they've told us, I haven't seen a map that shows exactly what their service area would be, but I imagine they would hit Nampa Caldwell as well. So that would kind of be the immediate service area that they're looking at. Sir? So the question was the same setup in Boise. So it's similar. So Boise has what they call Boise Bike Share. That is a dock system. So the first picture, it was kind of small, but it's similar. It's a bike share program, yes, but you have to replace those at a designated station throughout Boise. So very, very similar, though. Yeah. Go ahead. Another good question. So the question was if they need city permission. Yes and no, because some of what they would like to do is actually park these on city property, so in parks and those types of things. So it really is kind of a good faith agreement between our two organizations, the city and this private company. They want to be good stewards, and so they want to be held accountable basically through this agreement to say, hey, we won't let this become a problem with littered bikes everywhere or blocking sidewalks and those types of things. So technically, they probably wouldn't need an agreement, but again, we think it's a good idea to enter into an agreement so there are terms that both sides can agree to perform to. So, if there's no more questions, I am going to introduce Courtney McBride, who's with MIAC, and she's going to explain a little bit about their participatory budget project.
Thank you. Hi, as you said, I'm Courtney McBride, and I'm from MIAC, and some of you may remember, but every year we do a participatory budgeting project. The outdoor gym in Tully Park was one, and then the Veterans Memorial that just opened up at Kleiner Park is another one. And this... Sorry. Sorry. And this year we were going through our ideas, and we landed on a bike sort of idea. We wanted to first share, we had an idea for sharing bikes, but then the bike program we heard about came up, and so we decided to go in a different direction so we weren't conflicting with that. And we came up with fix-it stations, which are stations that we can place in parks or pretty much anywhere with tools necessary to fix bikes and a rack that you can hang them on and an air pump. And so that was kind of everything, and we had our idea passed through City Council. And the night we presented, there was a bunch of people there for the Costco, but we actually had Fast Studies approach us after wanting to help sponsor. So that's a little bit of the background information. So for the bike station, the price for each station is about $1,400, and we are currently probably going to start negotiating with the company to see if we can get a discount or just a lower price on them. And if we end up needing to install cement to place them in parks, it will cost about $10 per square foot. And for locations, we are currently looking at parks and schools in the library. And so the 6 parks that we are looking at are Tully Park, Heroes Park, Settlers Park, Bear Creek Park, Rita Husky Park, and we want to place 2 at Kleiner Park. And then we also have approved 1 at Cole Valley High School, and we have contacted the superintendent of the West Data School District to see if it would be possible to place them on some of their campuses. And we're also looking into installing 1 at the library on Cherry Lane, and we have not contacted them yet. 1 would also be placed on Fast Day's new location off of Eagle. And so for sponsors, we were originally looking into sponsors, and Fast Studies agreed to sponsor 7 of them, 1 on their new location and 6 at other places. And so after doing that, we decided to just go with that sponsor and not look at any other sponsors. And for the designs, the ones that are sponsored by Fast Studies, there will be the Fast Studies logo, and then on the other side there will be the MIAC logo. And then on the ones that are not sponsored by them, we'll have the MIAC logo on them, and they will all be a solid color behind it. And we decided to go with stickers instead of wraps, because if we do wraps, they're vinyl, and vinyl has to be replaced every 5 years, and we just wanted this to be a one-time cost. And so the installation requires a cement drill, and Fast Studies has that equipment, so we have decided to go with them to help install. So if you guys have any questions. So for the installation, it requires a cement drill, unless we have to install cement, which we're not sure about that yet because we haven't gone to the parks and checked them out yet. But it requires a cement drill, and Fast Studies has that equipment, so we have decided to go with them to help us install. So the cost of each one is about $1,400, and for total, we're looking at about 8 or 10. Our original idea was 12, but we decided to go with a little bit lower, just a little bit lower, so we have some cushion room. So with participatory budgeting, what we do is we come up with an idea, and City Council sponsors $20,000 to the project. And so we didn't want to use the full $20,000, so we decided to look at sponsors, and they agreed to sponsor 7, but we still do want some to be sponsored by MIAC. Yes, if needed, we do have parks behind us who has the installation equipment required. These are for your personal bikes, so if you're going on a bike ride or whatever, or a kid is coming home from school and they get a flat tire and no one can come pick them up, it's just an easy way for them to learn a valuable life skill and also be able to just fix it themselves. So on each station, there is a sticker with a QR code that will take you to a website that will teach you all the basic techniques on how to fix a bike. So also over here, we have a map with some stickers if you guys have any interesting locations that you guys would like us to look into. Now I'm going to pass the time over to Bill Neri for the election process.
Hi, I'm Bill Neri. I'm the city attorney. That's kind of a tough act to follow, especially with a super exciting topic of city council elections. I know everybody was waiting for that, so I'm here. Our city council recently has been discussing discussing whether or not it would be worth changing the method of how our council members are currently selected. All of our council members are chosen by seat. So we have 6 seats. We have 3 council members at each election cycle every 4 years. Every 2 years that come up for election. And right now, that's how they've been doing it actually since about 1987. So that's the one method that exists. Another that you see in many other elections you may notice, they'll say the top vote getters win. So by seat, Meridian does that, Boise does that. Top vote getters are done by Cuna, Eagle, Garden City, some of our local cities. So they have a certain number of seats that are available in each election, but the top vote getters in each seat, or top vote getters in the election, are the ones that get elected. So they're not elected by individual seats. And then the other 2 methods the Idaho Code does allow is by district. And there's 2 different methods that could be done if the city wishes to do that. They could basically separate the city into different districts based on population. You do it every census. You take the census numbers and you divide up the city by the population base so they're fairly equal in number. And then you can have council members either elected by individual districts, and the people that vote for them are the people that live in the district, or the council member has to live in the district, and the entire city can vote for them. So there's 4 methods in the Idaho Code that are eligible for people to select their representatives. In the state of Idaho, no cities currently represent or have their council members elected by district. They are all either done through the at-large method, which is the top vote getters, or the seat method that we currently do. So how could that be done? Right now, council members, as I said, run for an assigned seat. They number those seats. They then run for those particular seats in each election. You have to elect which seat you wish to run for. So who are you running against? Well, you're running against either the incumbent or other people that have selected that seat to run in. So you're not running against the field. You're simply running against the individual that has chosen to run for that seat, either the current council member, or if the seat is unoccupied or vacated, then it could simply be anybody that elects that. Next. So run for an open seat. Again, that's one where the council seats are numbered, but the individuals don't run for numbered seats. They simply run for the position. So if, for example, like with the city of Meridian, we have 6 council seats. 3 would be up in the election. The top 3 vote getters would then be the ones that earn those seats. So in that sense, you're running against the field. You're not running against any one individual. You're running against everybody that's choosing to run in that election cycle. And like I said, the cities of Eagle, Star, Nampa, Kuna, all local cities, that's the method that they use in selecting their council seats. Again, the district method, as we don't use but is available, you divide the city up, as I said, by census. You then look at the population base and try to, again, even that out as much as possible. And then you take the individual candidates, and as I said, you either do it one of 2 ways. They all have to live within the district they choose to run in, and the only distinguishment between the two is either only the individuals within the district vote for that person, or the entire city. So if you look at that on a statewide basis, the legislature is elected by districts, as you all know. County commissioners are elected by districts that the entire county then votes on. So it's done in other types of elections. It hasn't been done on a city scale anywhere in the state to this point. So again, this is what we currently have. This, again, everyone runs for the seats. And really the decision point the council is going to be looking for and having a public meeting on in May 22nd at 6 p.m. is a public meeting for this conversation to see if people have an interest in voicing their opinion on how we do it, leaving it the same, changing it to something different, what that difference would be. There's another process that would take place if the decision point is to change it from what it currently is. There is no city election this year, so the process for the seat selection, if it were to change, would occur in 2019 when the next election cycle for the city comes around. But there's some things that would need to happen between now and then by the city's process if the desire was to change. Questions? Yes, ma'am. So the question at the council, the question was, why did this come up? So one of the council members raised this question and said, you know, we have had city elections where we had numerous candidates, and we've had city elections where we had only one candidate per seat. And why that happens, I don't know. But the thought was, is there a different method that would get people engaged more or participate more or want to choose to run? Is it difficult to run against an incumbent? It can be. Is it more inviting if you're running against the field? I don't know. So I think the thought was, there's other methods out there. Are we doing it right? And if another method could draw interest, make people be more engaged with the city government and want to participate more in city government, then maybe that's worth at least discussing and getting some feedback. Yes, ma'am. The question was, if we did it by district, it could get very confusing. And I would agree. And right now, the way the state does it, and the federal government does it too, is they do it based on census. So they only do it once every 10 years. But I would agree, in this city, in the last 10 years, significant difference between what it looked like in 2000, 2010, and probably 2020. So I agree. But you see that at the state legislative level, where you'll have people, they change districts, or the districts combine or move slightly. So it does happen, but I would agree with you, and that's, I think, a consideration for the council to hear from the public if that's a concern. Any other questions? Yes, sir. So the question is there cost involved in changing the system? So the city does not run elections any longer. So how the election cycle of selection is done has no financial impact to the city. The individual council members, how it is either done by seat, at large, or by district. All the city council members receive a small monthly stipend. That wouldn't change unless you change the number of council members. So the election process wouldn't have any cost or impact to the city. Pardon me, sir. So the question is in creating the district method, would that have some cost? And I'm not saying it wouldn't have some cost. I don't know what method or how we would determine to divide those districts up, whether they'd be done, I mean, they have to be done by population base. Everything beyond that, and the state does it a lot of times with committees of legislators and citizens and varieties of other methods. And I can't tell you today what that costs the state to do that. But there certainly could be. I just don't know the answer to that today. Yes, ma'am. So the question is who pays for the elections in general. So the elections are all managed by the county. So, and that's been going on for the last 6 years? 4 or 6 years, I can't recall. The state legislature changed the rules 4 to 6 years ago and decided all counties would pay for the cost of elections, that they wanted all the elections to be done because they were being done by individual cities throughout the state. They had individual districts, school districts, other types of sub-districts and things doing it. So the state wanted it all generated through the Secretary of State down to the county clerks, and the counties manage that. So no, the city doesn't reimburse. The city has no financial stake in the election process. Other questions? Sure. So the mayor stated, again, there's a cost for an election. The election is going to happen regardless. So just the method of selection. And as I said to that gentleman, how those districts get divided, who does that, is that a volunteer group, that would make a recommendation to the city council? Again, those questions haven't been answered because I think we're still looking for that feedback on May 22nd from all of you and your other neighbors to tell the city council what your desire is. Any other questions? Hey, the next person up is Caleb Hood. You get to hear Caleb twice tonight. This is to talk about our comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry, folks. Twice in one night. One of my other hats that I wear, actually I wear this one more than the transportation one I spoke to you about earlier, but I am responsible for the city's comprehensive plan, not just me individually, but in our department. The comprehensive plan is a 20 to 25-year guide for the city, directing growth and development. So really two purposes for this presentation. One, I just wanted to kind of share some of that general information about what a comprehensive plan is and does, and a little bit about our specific one, and then talk to you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing over the next year or so to update that and really develop a new one. So, with that being said, our current plan was adopted in 2002. So, more than doubled since that time, in fact, almost tripled since 2002. So a lot of the policies that are contained in the document today were developed when a lot of us weren't here. Again, Meridian was roughly a third the size it is today when a lot of the policies and directing guiding statements for the plan was originally put together. We did, though, in 2011, so 2010, 2011, do a pretty significant reformat of the document, and it wasn't just a reformat. We really took a deeper dive into some of the policies that were in that 2002 version of the plan to make sure they were still relevant. But it wasn't done to the extent of the process that I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about tonight, where we really tried to cast a big net and engage the community at large about, hey, what are some core principles for growth and development in Meridian moving forward. We do also update it annually, so it's not like it hasn't been touched since 2011. We do take this document out, and it contains policies regarding all departments, so fire, police, public works, planning, finance. Every department at the city, and even other agencies like the school districts and other transportation providers, play a role in this document. So it is a comprehensive plan, and it covers a lot of different elements. Next slide. Oh, you got it up. So what's in it? So again, it covers a lot of different elements. If you look at what the state code requires us, we have to at least address those 17 items up there. So again, some of those the city plays a role in more than others in providing that service or addressing that element. Some of them in our plan are pretty brief. For example, public airport facilities. We don't spend a whole lot of time on that. We don't have a plan for a new airport in Meridian. Not a lot to address there. But some of them we spend quite a bit of time on, like transportation, land use, economic development, housing. So we really focus in on those. What you see on the left-hand side are the chapters that we currently have, the structure of our document today. I don't envision that largely changing. I think we'll probably keep some of that same structure. It may change a little bit. We maybe retitle some of it. But that is essentially, it seems to work for us that way. But more to come on that. We'll probably go to the next slide. So the comprehensive plan, really there's tables in there. And again, I talk about it being a guide for growth and development. There are policy statements, goals, objectives, and action items. So several goals, and then within the goals you have objective items and then really actionable items that tie back into your goal or objective, hopefully both. Most people, though, want to jump right to this guy. This is the future land use map. I know it's kind of hard to see, especially with the glare from the sun this evening, but that has the residential, commercial, industrial designations through the entire area of city impact. So the area of city impact is where Meridian intends to grow over time. So for us, it's the county line, Canada, McDermott. Down south, it's generally Lake Hazel, and up north, we go up to the Boise River, but generally Chinden is our boundary for the most part. We do, again, kind of go to the other side there for a little bit. But that's our area of city impact. So people want to know, what's my property? Is it commercial? Boy, it's probably worth a lot. If it's commercial, let me check the map. But it includes all properties that are currently zoned in Meridian, as well as, again, properties that are in unincorporated Ada County, but will someday we envision them being in Meridian and within the city limits. And then what you see on the right-hand side is actually city limits today. So we're roughly half, a little bit more actually, than what will be when we grow up. Right? When we're fully built out, we'll be about 67 acres. We're about 35 right now. So that's the zoning map on the right and the comprehensive plan future land use map on the left. Sometimes those get confused a little bit. It's not a direct correlation between your zoning and your future land use designation. So it can be a little bit confusing sometimes there, and I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. So because there is not a direct correlation between the future land use map and zoning, meaning I see medium density on the map, it's one zone on the zoning map. We've developed this matrix that shows you that, okay, if you've got this designation and the future land use designations are at the top and available zoning designations are on the left, you can see the possible zoning designations for various properties. It's still pretty confusing, so that's at least how we're doing it today, but as I transition then into talking about our new comprehensive plan, this is one of the elements we'll look at and see if there isn't a better way to do this that really does tie back in or again correlate better between the future land use map and the zoning designations. So Casey's pushing me right along here. All right. So we did put an RFP out on the street. Request for proposals was put on the street in early March. We did select a consultant in April. We're currently negotiating that contract and the scope of services with that consultant, and we'll be having a discussion next week with council about some of the terms within that, and we hope to kick something off later this month. I know it's on the other side of the world from where we're at, but the Hill, and the new YMCA on the South Meridian, and Hillsdale Park, there is a big ribbon cutting and ceremony going on May 25th on the south side. And so we hope to have a presence there in planning. So if you want some more information about this new comprehensive plan, we'll have a table set up or a booth or something with some more information. What we're really going to focus on this next year is, well, you really are pushing me along. I'm not even done with the last one. All right. Strategic growth. I do want to highlight this, though, because this is something I hear about quite frequently, so I do want to highlight this. Strategic growth management and public services. Everyone knows, right? We're growing rapidly. we get questioned a lot of times, you know, on how professional we are, and if there is anything is planning going on in Meridian. So that's something we're going to take a good look at and really see if, again, the policies in the plan are the right policies for our community going forward. That also applies to transportation and economic development as well. You know, recruitment of jobs and transportation. I mean, I commute too. You know, I see some of the problems we have even just coming here tonight. I talked to a couple people that were like, geez, just coming up Meridian Road, I had to wait through 5 or 6 cycles to get through that intersection. So I empathize. I'm part of this too. So we're going to talk about that and see what we can do better moving forward in the realm of transportation as well, working with our partners. So now the slide you're on before. So how can you be involved? First of all, there's a website, so you can bookmark this. We'll provide links there and additional information in the coming months. We also plan on doing some surveys and quick polls, and the quick polls really are meant to be that, 2 or 3 quick questions on a specific topic to get an idea, a sense, a flavor for what the community is interested in doing. We also do plan on building on the hashtag MyMeridian and having some things maybe after that, MyMeridian vision or some other things that way, but look for that hashtag. And then again, we'll be at community events here in the next several months. It is about a year-long process. So, but the first, half of that or more really involves you all. We want to hear from the community. What is the vision? How should we grow? Where should we grow? What are the policies then that we can implement to direct that growth accordingly? So, with that, I think that ends my slide. Again, you have the website up there, or you will. So check that out, and we'll be at various events, but I'll stand for a couple questions now if anyone has any. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the intersection of Meridian and McMillan.
Okay.
And it looks like maybe 1,000 apartments going in on the corner, which conceivably are putting nearly 2,000 vehicles a day on two-lane roads with
Mm-hmm.
middle school. It seems like every child is driven to school in a car. What's going to happen there? It's an insane intersection.
Yeah, so the question was about the apartments, the middle school, and largely the roadways that lead into that intersection not being wider, basically, having the facilities. So yes, the apartments first, because that was the first part of your comment question. Those apartments actually have been planned as part of the Paramount project since its original inception back in the early 2000s. They're just getting to that phase of it. So they've effectively been entitled with those for some time, but they've been developing out the single family first. They have obviously started to develop out the apartments now. The way that intersection actually functions today was done as what ACHD calls a developer cooperative project. So the developer actually came in ahead of when ACHD, the Ada County Highway District, planned on widening that intersection. There's a signal there at least. The signal wasn't there before the developer said, hey, ACHD doesn't plan to do this for, I don't know what it was, 10 years, let's say. They actually built it ahead of time because they couldn't wait for that. I'm not disagreeing with you that it's going to get worse probably before it gets better, because I'll add to that a little bit. McMillan, that section of McMillan, there is on one side of the roadway, you've got a large canal. On the other side, you've got huge power poles. They are not cheap to move. So McMillan, to widen that to a 5-lane roadway, you got to deal with one or the other. And ACHD is not prepared to do either one of them. So you're looking really at McMillan as a 3-lane roadway ultimately, never being widened to a 5-lane roadway. So that east-west corridor of McMillan there is going to be difficult. Meridian Road, there is a little bit of relief coming there, particularly the section north of Fairview. That will be widened in 2020, I believe. So that's practically around the corner now, up to Eustis at Settlers Park, basically, in the new intersection that went in there. But I hear you, and I'll just, maybe one more thing. It is taken into consideration, the mayor, the council, our planning and zoning commission, ACHD, when new projects come on, especially large ones like that. They're required to do a traffic impact study and review the impacts and then mitigate for those impacts that are directly attributable to their projects. But I'm not here to say it's a perfect system, but there is some thought that goes into that. Yeah, I should probably just stop there. Sorry. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
But if you knew that
Sure. So the planning, or the question is essentially the planning, if you knew that it was going to fail, essentially the roadway is going to be backed up, why did you approve more development knowing that? So again, a little bit of the interesting dynamic here in Ada County, and even Meridian more specifically, but in the county as a whole, we don't have a roadway department, so we do rely on the Ada County Highway District for those types of improvements. We do, again, take into consideration some of the impacts from those projects, but we don't have that ability to deny a project because the roadways are going to fail necessarily. Again, a developer is required to mitigate their impacts for any new project. Now, yeah, I understand some of the concern there, and I'll also just say, it is, and it'll get worse on some roads again, probably before it gets better. But there are some improvements that can be made that can mitigate some of the short-term impacts, particularly during the AM and PM peak hours. That's really what ACHD looks at a little bit. And then throughout the rest of the day, what are the volumes like? So having some programs that can help take drivers off of the road or put in bike lanes and things like that to help relieve some of the congestion. So, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, the question was how many apartments are going in there, and if on average there's maybe one elementary school per unit. I don't, so I gotcha. So another elementary school because there's so many units. I gotcha. Yeah, so and this is similar to ACHD. The school district, has to serve whatever kids come. So it is a little bit of another interesting dynamic with growth that the city approves or denies, but whatever we approve by state statute, the school district is required to serve those students. I can't answer the part about if a new elementary is going to be required or not. The district has dealt with that, providing portables and other things, but yeah, they're behind the curve too in providing infrastructure, and I know a lot of the schools are overcrowded these days. So.
Is there room for and a facility for making open-ended recommendations and suggestions in the process that you're pursuing with trying to get public feedback? Because I have a feeling that there's a lot of very specific information and recommendations that are floating around the community.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the question is basically with the new comprehensive plan, is there going to be, yes.
That's really not an appropriate venue for that.
Well, so one of the tools we're looking at, though, is within the website, having an opportunity to just basically post thoughts, concerns, ideas. So there will be kind of more open-ended or ability to comment on whatever's on your mind. We will do, though, targeted polls and things like that still and have specific elements we want to tackle. But yeah, we do envision having an element of that is, again, just share whatever you'd like, and we'll try to address that within the comprehensive plan. So, anything else? Sir. So the question was, under what conditions can we deny a building proposal? So I'm going to maybe rephrase that a little bit, but yes. So essentially the same question. Thanks for the clarifier. What I was going to say is it's a complex answer, though. Depending on where that developer or person that's proposing to build a building is in the process. So at annexation, back to the future land use map, properties that are currently in the county and are requesting to come into Meridian to be annexed, that's when the council has the most discretion. That's when they can basically say it's not in the best interest of our citizens on this day to approve this building permit or annex your property, really, is that condition. So there is a lot of discretion. There is a lot of that ability to do what you just said. Now, once a property is entitled, what we call entitled, so they're annexed and zoned, you lose a lot of that ability to deny a project. I'll use the apartment example again. Those apartments were essentially approved back in 2002. The details of those apartments weren't proposed again until 2016, 2017, whenever it came back through. So there, the mayor and council would have had to have a really good reason to deny that project. They could have still acted that way, but you'd probably be looking at a lawsuit. So again, depending on where you're at in the spectrum of entitlement and development, and life safety plays into that too. So if you're building, in your scenario, it doesn't meet life safety codes, we could deny the building permit because it isn't designed accordingly. Transportation plays into that. Certainly that can be a reason for denying a project. It can be an element of why a project is denied or not. But we're not on very good standing if that's the only reason that it's denied is because it's going to create more traffic. Same with schools. Again, schools are, kids will be educated in West Ada. So, any other questions? Sir? So, yeah. Yeah, mm-hmm. So a couple of thoughts there. One, let me just restate the question was, has the number of units in the Paramount apartments changed over time? Right now I'm wishing that I would have refreshed my memory, done some more research before this because I didn't realize there were going to be so many questions on that. I don't know that answer. I don't think it was as detailed as 4-story and however many units it is now. It was more conceptual. It was zoned for multifamily apartments, at roughly a range of units, 400 to 600 or whatever it was. So no, those details weren't there. But to disclose or otherwise find out, how can we find out what's coming? Give us a call. Come into our office. Check online. We do have this information available. It is public information. We'll share it with you. If you're curious, what's going on this property that currently has a barn? Is it annexed and zoned? Or are you talking to people that are interested in annexing and zoning and subdivide it? We'll share that information with you. So we're here for you, to help you answer some of those questions. So again, you can go to our website. My contact information is there, or call our office. So I saw your hand first, so go ahead.
Do some of these developers, do the developers, are they required to pay some kind of impact fee? So what their project is how it's going to affect the road?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
And I guess Caleb is our planning manager, and so I think the elected officials have an equal opportunity to answer some of the more difficult discussion on growth and what's being approved or not. And so I'm first going to address the impact fee. The state law allows us to collect impact fees on parks, we do. On police, we do. On fire, we do. We have assessments in our sewer and water, and these are all city services. It also allows you to collect impact fees on roads. ACHD imposes impact fees on roads. But you have to keep in mind impact fees are collected on a building permit by building permit basis. So the building has to go up before you get the fee. And it has to build up to enough degree that you can then do something with it. The state does not allow us to collect an impact fee on schools. We have been in front of the legislature since the 90s asking for that authority, and we have not been able to get it. So if you walk away with one message today and you want impact fees instead of your property taxes paying for new schools, I think you need to pay attention to who we elect. So I can say that, Caleb can't. So, but you know, impact fees, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our citizens to utilize every tool we can to make sure that growth pays for itself. But the only way we can do it is if that growth happens in our city. We are blessed with a central location. We are also cursed with the central location because all cars travel through us. And we can impose an impact on the development that's being proposed. It's hard to impose an impact on the cars that are generated in all of our neighboring communities. And I think that's the biggest challenge that Ada County Highway District has. It's that cumulative impact of other decisions, not just our own, but what others do. And so council cannot turn down a development when you have the road authority, ITD or ACHD, saying we can accommodate additional traffic. It's hard to justify when the decision-making entity does not back your well, I think there's too much traffic, and your elected officials in that agency and the staff are not saying we can't accommodate it. And the same goes for schools. The school board and the staffs say it's going to generate this many students, this is where it's overcrowded, but they do not end the sentence in we can't accommodate it. So, but because they can. They'll read district, they'll bus in some cases, and they'll accommodate that where they can. Yes. And yes, the question is, how do you distribute the impact fees to generate that back into the community? So we're required by Idaho State Code to have an impact fee study. And the first thing we do is we establish a level of service. So the impact fee is used to maintain a level of service. So we first establish what is that level of service that we will charge an impact fee to continue that level of service. And so we in the city of Meridian save before we spend. We are a city without debt. And when we have collected enough, then we build a project. So our parks is a great example, and probably the easiest example I can give you. Our level of service that we established when we established impact fees was 3 acres per 1,000. And right now, because of the rate of growth, we have fallen below that, even though we added 2 new parks last year. So we only count developed acres as that level of service. So we're around 2.65, 2.7, and we are just now building the first 20 plus acres in South Meridian that might get us there. We're hoping. But that's kind of how they're utilized, is when we have saved enough of those impact fees, then we can build the next project. Hopefully that made sense. I'm not an Ada County Highway District elected official, and so I can't, but they do have a 5-year plan that is, I believe, fiscally constrained. And so they evaluate that 5-year plan every single year. They get, even though we don't have road authority, our staff, Caleb, works very closely with them in communicating, as does our Citizen Commission, our Transportation Commission, to articulate what our needs are, and that has our police department, our planning departments, and various voices at that table to prioritize a list. And I can tell you, prioritizing that list in Meridian is very difficult because we think everything's a priority. However, we have gotten complaints about road construction and how many projects sometimes we have going on. So it's, I guess, a blessing and a curse. You have too many road construction projects going on, and that's not popular either. Other questions? I would like to thank you for your time, and we'll be around if you have questions that you don't want to ask publicly. We're here to help answer. Genesis Milam, another one of our city council members, she came in just a few minutes late, but I didn't have a chance to introduce her. Please let us know what your questions are if we haven't already asked them. I would like to thank Courtney for being here. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is a tremendous asset in our community. And this participatory budgeting process that she talked about brings to our city council ideas from a teen's perspective of things that are lacking in our community that are important to them. And they came up with the bike share thing, and then Lime Bike came up, and they said, okay, well, and what they were finding, it was a little bit more expensive than they had first anticipated. So they said, well, how can we support our peers that are riding their bikes to school and having these flat tires or the chain comes off, how can we help them so that they're not stranded? And they came up with these fix-it stations that are to encourage their peers to use a bike more often without the fear of being stranded. And so I really applaud them. I applaud Fast Eddies, who listened to the presentation and stepped up and said, we want to help sponsor that and minimize any costs to the city, but they want to be a corporate partner in encouraging alternative forms of transportation. And here they are, a gas station that should say, no, we only want cars on the road. So they're trying to take cars off the road, and that is awesome. Their support of our youth is great. So thank you for coming, and we look forward to our next town hall. We have Coffee with the Mayor coming up. If you are, upcoming events behind me. So we love to get our citizens out, and we have some phenomenal things. The Main Street Farmers Market, it's the last 2 years we've had youth vendors, and now we're expanding it so adults can do it as well. But you'll have dependable produce every weekend starting June 23rd from 9 to 2, and we hope you patronize that so they'll continue to come back. We have free concerts at City Hall Plaza. There'll be 2 in July and 2 in August. These are really energetic concerts. They're free, if I didn't mention that. They're covered by sponsors and our Meridian Arts Commission. So there's a lot going on, and we love Meridian. I hope you do too. Even though you might have some frustrations with us, we love to live here. I live here, and I love it. So thank you for being here.